Welcome to the beginning of our F1 career mode. I am very excited to be bringing this series to you, and there's a couple of reasons why I have gone back to F1 on the PS2. Firstly, I invested in a Logitech wheel for the PS2 last week, and that has enhanced my enjoyment for this era of games so much more, so much so that I'm going to do a whole season on this. Hopefully, because my record at finishing series in the past ain't been all that great. Also, I've recently watched this, the 2004 F1 season review. Michael does it again, which has really excited me about this era of F1. I used to play F1 Championship Edition on the PS3 loads. Didn't play this game back in the day. I've played it a couple of times on the PS2 since I've bought it again. But in the last couple of days I've played it and I had an absolute joy with it. Did a one-off video and was going to continue with the career mode, either being streamed or just off camera. But I played on medium then, and I've moved it up to hard. I managed to get a seat with Jordan, the first driver seat. It was a little bit difficult. I had to sit through a couple of trials and really try and get there. I was offered the test driver to start with, didn't want that. Then I went to a trial with Red Bull, which I just about failed on by about a second. And then I did another trial with Jordan, smashed it, and not just got the second driver seat, I am Jordan's first driver for the 2005 season. Now, medium difficulty, we quite comfortably were a lot quicker than the AI, no question about it. A couple of seconds a lap quicker on that difficulty if we had a clean lap. However, on hard difficulty, it's going to be a completely different playing field. Hopefully more realistic to what it is in real life, but I think we will be able to punch above our weight somewhat. If we go and win this Australian Grand Prix, then this might never see the light of day, and I might just carry on from Malaysia, because the last video was kind of a win at Australia, albeit we did finish in P3. But without any further ado, let's go straight to the Australian Grand Prix. We're going to be doing 20% races to start off with, a 12-lap race around the Australian Grand Prix. Let's get straight into qualifying. For anybody like me who was unfamiliar with the qualifying system back then, because it wasn't until the following year, started well there on the outlap, didn't we, in 2006, that the qualifying system that we all know and possibly love today, the free qualifying sessions that we have today, started. It was one lap, one shot qualifying, but a twist for 2005, which didn't last all that long. I tell you what, this is starting awfully. I'm wondering whether there's possibly an alignment problem with the wheel here. It's going so badly. In 2005, for 6 races, there were 2 qualifying sessions. So you'd have a Saturday qualifying session where drivers would set one lap, similar to what it was in 2004 or seasons before that. And then there would be a Sunday qualifying session. And the 2 times were added together as an aggregate time to decide where you placed on the grid. And I talked about it in the first video. I really like that idea because it adds some jeopardy to both qualifying laps. Yes, it does mean that you can recover on a Sunday if you have a bad lap on a Saturday, to a degree of course, but also if you have a really bad lap on either one of those days, it is going to scupper your chances of a good qualifying. So as the new kid on the block, we are first out for our qualifying lap on Saturday. We're looking for about a 1:28, I would say. That's what I managed to achieve earlier, doing a really strong lap. So let's hope we can achieve something like that. So let's see how close we're going to get to that. We're not going to be too far away. It might be a 29 we go into. Let's have a look as we come across the line. It's a 1:28.8. So that's decent, about half a second off where I was a little bit earlier, but it's all about hooking both laps up. So let's see what happens as we skip to the end of the round. We can watch the session, but we have to watch each driver in turn, which starting first off isn't really what I want to do. And that has put us in P8 after the first session. Kimi Raikkonen on pole at the moment in the McLaren, so a good start for him. Good start for McLaren overall, actually. 2 drivers in the top 3. Schumacher and Barrichello 4 and 6. I thought for a second that Massa was in the Ferrari team, but actually he's in the Sauber team for this year, getting it all mixed up. Takuma Sato 7th. So we are pretty respectively placed. It was that first sector that let us down a little bit because we are quite quick in the second sector, the same time as Juan Pablo Montoya in that sector. But the first sector we are lacking slightly. But a good position to be in going into Sunday quali. So because we qualified in P8 yesterday, the guys who were behind us go out before us. The order that we qualified in on Saturday is reversed. And there are only a couple of drivers who have beaten our lap from Saturday. Christian Klein, Jenson Button and David Coulthard. So as long as we match the time that we did on Saturday, then we should have a fair chance of being on the top half of the grid. Any shocks? Well, Giancarlo Fisichella's got to be the biggest one so far, I would say. He could start a low of 11th. Mark Webber as well, being down in potentially P17. But I think we can be a bit quicker than our lap, so we've got to aim upwards, I think, rather than down. But let's just keep it clean. That's the main thing. Was our first sector that was poor on Saturday's lap, so why not ride on board with me for the first sector of this lap on Sunday? Let's see if we can improve on that first sector. That is where we seemingly lost the most time on Saturday. A bit of hesitation when turning into that first corner there, so not ideal, but still clean nevertheless. Coming down into turn 3. This is a corner I've got a little bit wrong so far, braking a little bit late, but that is better. Oh, I'm too far out to the right. Going into turn 4, just trying to make it a bit more of a sweeping curve. And not really doing all that well there. I'm not going to look at the sector time until we come out of the right-hander because I need to focus. But it's a 30 dead, which is, I think, a couple of attempts quicker. Oh, lovely run through the chicane. Oh, no. Fortunately, that didn't descend into an almighty spin. That could have been the end of our hopes of a top 10 start for Sunday. Let's see what it's going to be across the line. Is it an improvement on yesterday? No, it's not. It's a 129 dead. But we kept it clean. The 2 laps ultimately have been pretty similar, so that's okay. Interestingly, though, that does put us behind Christian Klein and Jensen Button for Sunday. They managed to improve so much on their times from Saturday that we have ended up behind them. So if we are out qualified by all 7 of these guys, we will be starting P10. So at least we've secured a top half start for this Grand Prix. I mean, Narain Karthikeyan, our teammate, is well last. So we have out qualified him significantly. Because we've took number 1 spot, we are going to have Karthikeyan as a teammate and not Thiago Monteiro. Let's ride on board though with Takuma Sato through his lap. So a 30 dead for the first sector, fairly similar to us, but Takuma has got slightly more time. I'll say that. He did a 28.8 yesterday, so pretty much the same time that we managed to achieve. So let's see if he can go above us today. It's a really bad second sector there from Takuma Sato. We did a 24.1 in that second sector. Takuma Sato only achieving a 24.9. I love these games, by the way, for the way you can watch the action unfold. That's something in the early Codemasters games you just didn't get. You might have got it in, I think you got it in F1 2009, but in terms of the Xbox 360 PS3 titles, I don't think we got it till probably F1 2015 as far as I can remember. So, Sato comes across the line. It's a 129.6, so that puts him way down the grid. Let me just show you what sort of impact that has on things, because if you look at the standings, although he did a good lap yesterday, so he did better than anybody else on that screen, because his lap time was so weak yesterday, Takuma Sato could start a potential P15 for the Grand Prix. So lots of jeopardy involved in this. This would be great to watch. I mean, there aren't many stakes, are there, at the start of this career mode, but if it comes down to a championship battle and you're watching somebody like Takuma and he fluffs his lap, so you can have the different camera angles, albeit you can't ride on board, which is a little bit of a shame. You can change the camera angles around. So you can have the always following, you can have the front view, the rear view, or probably what I would prefer, the TV view. So a good first sector from Rubens, a sub 30, a 29.7. It would be quite an achievement to go and out qualify a Ferrari, but I think we need Rubens to make a mistake. It's 24.5 in the second sector, so he's a couple attempts down on what we set overall. 28.7, that puts him top of the timesheets. That is what you call consistency. So we've dropped to P4. Rubens Barrichello, top of the timesheet. So well done to Rubens. Improved on that last sector. Did a 34.3 in that last sector. We did a 34.8. So a really strong last sector of the lap. Who's out next? So it's Felipe Massa. That could be a really strong qualifying for him in the Sauber. Particularly seeing as his teammate, Nick Heidfeld, is all the way down in 11th at the moment with 5 still to qualify. So Felipe Massa, let's hope he can carry on his good form. I think Massa is likely the only one who we could realistically fall behind. Go ahead of now. 24.9, that's really weak. That is really weak. So Felipe Massa's really got to pull it out the bag in this last sector. But we've seen, if you look at the other drivers actually who have set a lap time today, the sector times really range. You can see, even if you look at Rubens, a good first sector, the quickest so far today. That second sector would be about halfway, if not lower than that. In fact, if you look at Massa's, that's a really bad second sector. Similar to Takuma Sato. So he's got to put it back in this last sector if he wants to start where his Saturday performance probably merited him to start. It's a 29.7. That is a really bad lap time considering what he did yesterday. And that puts him down in P8. So we are going to start a minimum of P8. That's what I would expect us to be. I can't see any of the top 4 to ruin their laps. Yeah, and that wasn't a shock. We didn't expect that to happen, and it didn't. It's a McLaren 1-2, though. Fernando Alonso has a slightly weaker time compared to Juan Pablo Montoya. So it's a McLaren front row. Michael Schumacher, although he set a 28 dead, wasn't enough after a 28.4 to bridge the gap. But it's a McLaren front row. Alonso and Schumacher 3 and 4. Rubens Barrichello 5. I think Christian Klein, driver of the day in the Red Bull, in 6th place. Red Bull, 2 cars in the top 10 as well, so a solid start for them. But we start P8 for the Australian Grand Prix. So if we finish there, we get a solitary point. I'd like to move forward, but if we can get a point out of the first race, that's a good start. This is all a bit of a marvel because there is commentary on the Grand Prix mode, but on career mode, for some reason, James Allen and Martin Brundle just want to stay quiet. So I'll run down the grid. I've already pretty much run through the first half of the grid. Giancarlo Fisichella possibly being the only driver that I haven't mentioned. Both Toyotas in the bottom half, that's a bit of a surprise. Takuma Sato we covered yesterday. A weak start for the BMW Williams as well. Was that Heidfeld and Mark Webber? I thought that, I'm sure that, or was it, no, it was Jack Villeneuve, wasn't it, that was Felipe Massa's teammate in this season, not Nick Heidfeld. So, got that a little bit right. We've got 5 lights though for this Grand Prix, and we are underway. We have to swerve from David Coulthard, and for some reason, once again, like it was in the previous video, the sound seems to have muffled, so I don't know if that is a bit of a glitch. But a decent start for us. We have gained 2 positions at the start. We got past the Red Bull of DC. I'm not sure who the other car was that we got past, but you can see the other guys are starting to pull a little bit of a gap already. But a good start for us, staying in P6. Oh, we've got a good run out of that corner. Can we go up the inside of the Ferrari? I'm not sure which one it is. It is Rubens Barrichello. We give Michael Schumacher a firm tap on the back. I'm not sure that the damage model is really all that receptive in this game, to be quite honest. Certainly compared to the newer games where your front wing would just be completely off. But we are competitive here. So a really good start as we end lap 1. We have gained 3 place. You might be able to see on the mini-map just behind that Rubens Barrichello is all over the back of us. So we could possibly expect a move up the inside. I'm not expecting to be challenging the top runners today. And this hard difficulty, now that I have managed to get past a trial on the hard difficulty, this is going to provide much more of a challenge compared to medium, where we would just sail away if we didn't make any mistakes. And I did do an F1 2018 career mode some time ago on this channel. I do want to bring that back. I'm very keen to get that finished because I have got a habit, that was a bit of a rough run through there, got a bit of a habit of not finishing series off. So with playing this, I want to try and perhaps alternate this and that series. I'm not promising too much just yet because I don't want to promise things that I'm not going to deliver, but the hope is to try and get that finished. But we've had a really good first sector, which in turn has put us right behind this battle for 3rd place. Can we overtake Michael going into the chicane? We give him a tap. So, oh, I mean, that's ridiculous. We've got a 7-second slowdown for that. And I think that was because we cut the chicane. But in terms of giving racing room, I think we give more than enough to Michael Schumacher there. I don't like the penalty system in this game, but I am going to keep it on because it just means that we can't exploit things too much and start cutting corners, and you guys down in the comments and go, oh, you're just cheating. But I think it is incredibly harsh, again, for a minor cut like that we would have, we did concede the position back to Michael, that now it's had such an impact. We could have been going for 3rd place. We are now sat in 7th. That's something to think about, though, when you're going for racing moves. Maybe don't go for something like that because you could end up with a penalty. So some work to do to recover the ground that unfortunately we have just lost. But on the positive side, from where we are at the start of the race, we are still in a points paying position. Fuel and tyre wear is also scaled, so that means in this 20% race we will be making 1 pit stop halfway through. Judging on what we did in the first time we played this, though, it will just be, we've done it again, cut the corner, got a little bit greedy trying to catch up to Jensen Button, but not so much of a penalty this time, only a couple of seconds, so that's okay. But judging on the first time we did this race, it is just going to be a pit stop for fuel. We'll just make it a little bit shorter, but of course that applies to everyone, so it is somewhat irrelevant really. But Christian Klein is in P8 still behind us, so could be a good start to the season for both Jordan and Red Bull, 2 of the lower performing teams in this season. But if you look at how the gaps come down over this lap, we are a little bit quicker than Jensen Button. There's no question about that. For some reason, it's put us down to P8. which is odd. I think it's because somebody's just retired. It looks like it could be one of the Saubers who's retired from this race, and because he's jumped into the pits, I'm guessing the game has judged that we are now behind him. But we are gaining on Jenson Button. It's a tough race to get position in this Australian Grand Prix, particularly on this game, because I nearly got a little bit of a snap out of T3 there because of the whole risk of penalties. And I guess this model is a little bit different to what the model would be now in terms of overtaking. I think that particularly going into slow corners, you have got to potentially push the driver out the way, but there's a clear gap showing now. We are 3.5 seconds behind Christian Klein, so we have this 7th place sewn up again, taking liberties at that right-hander, which has just lost us the time really that we gained on Jenson Button. So that is a bit of a learning curve for us, but we're quite secure in 7th place. So unless we make any fatal error, unless anybody gets past Christian Klein, we should be okay for a couple of points on our F1 debut. So an early pit stop for the Ferrari there, really interesting. On lap 4 he's coming. I didn't see that in the last race. That's Rubens Barrichello, who has opted for a very early stop, so has gone very light on fuel early on. That's quite encouraging actually, unless he's got damage. That's the only thing I can think of. But trying to be positive about the game, let's hope it is a variance in strategy, because you don't want to just see one drive from the team pit on lap 6 and the other one pit on lap 7. That isn't really much interest, so maybe reading too much into this, but Rubens could well have pitted early because he started with a lower amount of fuel. Ultimately wasn't the best qualifying for Ferrari, so did Ferrari try and get their number 2 driver to upset the apple cart at the front? Well, unfortunately for the moment for them, it hasn't worked. Right, we are getting closer and closer to Jenson Button in the BAR Honda. The Jaws music is really just starting, but we tend to have a good run through that chicane. That time round, not quite though. I think that I did go off the gas a little bit there because I was hesitant of running into the back of JB and ruining our slipstream effect down the back straight. But in turn, we have lost a little bit of time to JB, so just going to try and hook some corners up and then hopefully move into P5, which of course will become P6 once we pit on the next lap. Ferrari going very early though here because Michael has pitted as well, and it looks like the Renault of Fernando Alonso has reacted to that. So Renault and Ferrari playing some early games here, pit stop games, which means they will be a bit heavier on fuel at this stage. So will that make a difference? Could we possibly jump Rubens Barrichello? I doubt it, but especially if he's come back into that train behind Christian Klein, you do wonder whether there is a potential for some overcutting to go on. But I feel like this is going to be our chance. You feel the slide through those corners there. I think we might just have to do what we did on the first lap. Realistically though, that wasn't going to happen. I swear I've got damage on, but I feel like we should have had a much more injured front wing by now. I can only imagine the drivers behind Christian Klein are getting really annoyed because he's 8.3 seconds behind us now. Juan Pablo Montoya was momentarily ahead of Christian Klein, but not anymore. So is Jenson going to follow us into the pits? It would be fascinating if he didn't, because if he stopped out another lap, then we might be able to have the outlap of our lives potentially. But unless the pit stop is really bad, we've got no danger of being held up in the pits from behind, so that's a good thing to know. So let's see if Jenson follows us in. He doesn't, so he's going to likely pit on lap 7. Still early on, I'm still not quite sure of the pit limiter. The game does do it for you, I think, so that is good to know. You can go full pedal to the metal first off and then go for it. So that's the McLaren of, I think that's Kimi Raikkonen, who has just pitted and come out ahead of us. No surprise about that. Just a quick pit stop for fuel then, 6.2 seconds. Where do we come out? We've come out though in between the two Ferraris, and we have jumped Rubens Barrichello. So that strategy from Ferrari, unless it was damage for Rubens Barrichello that led him to come in early, has gained us a place. And given how close we were to Jenson Button, not driving like that though, given how close we were to Jenson Button, a good outlap here might well put us ahead of the BAR Honda as well. Quite a turning point in our race was the penalty we got, wasn't it, for the battle between ourselves, Schumacher and Alonso, because if we hadn't given up those two spaces, we would be, well, we've got back to where we were really before all that drama started, except now Michael and Fernando are some distance away. So it might just be ourselves against Michael Schumacher, which any debutant in Formula 1, particularly in Schumacher's Ferrari days, would be pinching themselves at having a battle with Michael Schumacher. But our main aim here is to keep our momentum and try and to be either very close to Jenson Button when he comes out of the pitch, surely at the end of this lap I would have thought now, or even ahead of him. Let's have a look. We've got a Renault in of Giancarlo Fisichella. That's not a surprise. Jenson is just coming out. You can see him. No, you can't on the left-hand side of the screen because we've jumped Jenson Button. So Jenson, not the best in-lap from him there, and he is now behind Rubens Barrichello. So he hasn't managed to jump Rubens in that pit stop window there, and we have managed to jump into a very respectable P5. Can we go any higher than that? Again, outbraking ourselves into turn 3 there. Getting very close to Michael Schumacher now in the Ferrari. Is it going to be a dive up the inside at any point? I feel like when I get close to the AI, I am being a little bit too nice and conceding the advantage that I did have. We were right behind Michael, but now going onto the start-finish straight and coming across the line. I'd say we're about a second behind him. Yeah, 9/10 of a second behind him. We've got to be careful because Rubens Barrichello is only 6/10 of a second behind us. So any mistake or any penalty, we could lose that 5th place. But to be in a Ferrari sandwich in our first race in Formula 1 with the Jordan backmarker team, ain't a bad start. Looks like it's going to be a dream start to the season for McLaren though. Fernando Alonso we can see, but I haven't seen either of the two McLarens. Kimi Raikkonen came out in front of us early. We saw that before we'd even gone in to our pit box. So you would assume the two McLarens are some way out in front. What a start to the season for them. That Renault of Fernando Alonso's coming into sight, so if Schumacher gets a move on, he could be going for a podium at the end of this race. I think 3 laps left, time might just run out for Michael. We're not able to get quite close enough to make a move. This second sector is really where we're strong, and actually out of that corner we've had a blinder of a run, which has just allowed us to out-drag the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher, and 20 seconds after saying no, I don't think we've got a chance of getting Michael so quick, we've really just out-dragged him out of that right-hander after Sector 1 and took 4th place off him. So now I am hungry to try and get a maiden podium in Formula 1 in our first race. Fernando Alonso less than a second up the road. The McLarens are nowhere to be seen, so they are comfortably going to win this race, barring a mechanical failure. But a podium could well still be on. And we've got a potential run coming down into the chicane. We're going to go well wide, see what kind of run we can get on Fernando. He's going to take a defensive line, realistically the racing line. I don't think he'd yield that, so there's no use at this point in the race. What is it, another 2 points for 3rd or 1? I think it's 1, isn't it? 5 for 4th and 6 for 3rd, so we don't necessarily want to jeopardise. It would be great to get a maiden podium obviously, but we don't want to jeopardise 5 points for Jordan here where we could lose them. So the last lap of a 12-lap Australian Grand Prix, which is absolutely flown by. 20% is a perfect distance, I think. I think 30% might be a little bit too long, but I'll judge that as we go through the races. But on the 12th lap here in Australia, again, we've got a good run on Fernando Alonso, thwarted a little bit by sticking our tyre into the grass there. It's not going to be at the right-hander. Anybody who watched the first video on F105 knows what happened there on the last lap against Rubens Barrichello last time out, so don't want to repeat that. Not quite going to happen here, apart from a dive bomb. I think we're not close enough into the right-hander. The last corner is our only line of attack, and I don't feel like I'm too strong through this section, and I don't want to throw anything down the inside of Fernando Alonso, so it is going to be 4th place in our debut in Australia. But what a fantastic Grand Prix to start off with. I thought that we'd be doing pretty well if we could remain in 8th place, and to be honest, on hard difficulty, although over 1 lap we set the times, I wasn't quite sure what to expect over a race distance. But we are more than competitive, but it is certainly a challenge. So I think in this Jordan, if we can compete with that pace, we might well be going for a title battle, possibly, but I have got some good experience around Australia now, so some of those other tracks might well be more difficult. But it's the McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen who takes the first win of the season. Look at the gap the McLaren's had in this first Grand Prix. 10 seconds ahead of Fernando Alonso was Kimi Raikkonen, so a really strong start for them. So it's Fernando Alonso 3rd, ourselves in 4th after starting P8. The 2 Ferraris take 5th and 6th. They've got to be a little bit disappointed with that, I would have thought. Couple of points for Jenson Button, but a big gap then to Felipe Massa, who gets Sauber a solitary point. A big gap back then again to Christian Klein and Ralf Schumacher, and you can see the train behind Christian Klein once again going all the way down to Mark Webber. But then our teammate Narain Karthikeyan, Patrick Frieschacker and Christian Albers in the Minardis are way behind. And it's Nick Heidfeld in the Williams and David Coulthard on Red Bull's debut which don't score any points. Well, no surprise that the Drivers' Championship matches what happened in this race. The Constructors, though, it is full marks to McLaren, who get a nice early lead. Ferrari, the only other team to get 2 drivers into the points, but it's 7 for Ferrari, 6 for Renault, and 5 for Jordan. A couple for BAR Honda, and a good solitary point for Sauber Petronas. Well, the team more than happy with that last performance, just said that it was great work in the last Grand Prix. And Kimi Raikkonen, of course, in the news section, romping home to take the race win. So next time out, we will be heading to the Sepang International Circuit in 2 weeks' time, in-game, hopefully quicker than that, in our YouTube universe, to take on the Malaysian Grand Prix. If you're looking forward to this series, then please do leave a like down below. I am certainly looking forward to recording this series. As I said, I would have probably played it off camera, but this gives me more of an excuse to go and record the episodes, and I might well do the odd episode live streamed. I'll see how I feel. But thank you very much for watching. Comment if you enjoyed as well. Subscribe for more F105 career mode content, and I'll see you all in the next one.